morning, everybody. Welcome back to everybody, and good evening, John Parra. I missed you on the typing, but anyway, we're back, and new product, new show, and new project. So this is going to be a bit of a fun project because it's something that Roger Gifkins did many years ago, and when we were wandering around our shows, the trade shows that we've been doing, I had this little thing here sitting on the bench, which summoned up quite a lot of interest by many people. And since then, I've been called regularly by lots of people asking me how to do tapered boxes. I sometimes wonder, why would you want a tapered box? But then again, people have all different ideas about what they want to do and how they do their projects and things like that, and this is just one of them. So, over the last few months, what we've been doing here, Pam and I have gone through a whole lot of different ideas and come up with some bits and pieces to fit the jig so that you can do these sorts of things. And hopefully that'll alleviate a lot of the questions that people are asking to do tapered boxes. Now, tapered boxes, I suppose you can have it up that way, or you can have it up that way. I don't know. I've never been really that focused on making tapered boxes, but I'm more interested in probably making tapered trays. Now, I've got three little trays here, and they're all got different angles, which brought up the other problem that we had was, what angle do we do the boxes at? Now, initially what I thought this was 15 degrees, because in some of the literature that you see with Roger presented, he has mentioned 15 degrees. Now, the reason he mentioned 15 degrees is because that's probably the most extreme, the most of an angle that you could have without having a compound angle that showed a gap on the inside of the box. And so what we did is I measured this, and it's only 5 degrees. It looks more, but it's only a 5-degree angle. And so what we did is we developed a ruler that would do 5, 10 and 15 degrees. So they're just three that we can do. And so I put together, and we built a number of little boxes, or little trays I should say, at 15 degrees. Now, to me, a tray seems to be the better
most useful.
The better use, I suppose. If you have a tray like this and the sides are splayed out a little bit, it means that you know, like it's easily accessible of everything, and things don't get tucked up in the corners. And the more the angle, the more deliberate the tray looks. Okay, so this one here is 5 degrees, so that is actually the same as that. And when you put them together, they fit together. So we have a 5-degree angle. So it's splayed out both ways. This one is 10 degrees. And you can see there's a fair difference between that and this. So, and this one is the 15-degree one. Okay, so very deliberate looking angle. So different sorts of angles. And this is the point that Roger made in his literature, was that with the 15 degree, because of the compound angle, you're going to get a little gap here in the on the inside. Now, in a later date, when I've become more comfortable with this 15 degrees, we might be able to work out some way of actually overcoming that. But at the moment, that's what we have at this stage. So you'll just have to bear with me with it as I develop more with the 15 degree. I quite like the angle. It's quite a deliberate angle. It looks deliberate, and therefore the project looks quite good. I've just put a little base in each of these. It's just a panel, and as you can see, the box looks like that. It's just now the other thing that I've done, and I've noticed this on a couple of people who've made these boxes, and this one in particular, it's flat. It's flat on the top, flat on the bottom, so it fits flat on the bench. What I've done is I've developed the foot section so that it sits up a little bit. So it just looks a little bit nicer. It's one of the things that I've played with right from the start when I started making boxes. So I've just continued the theme. The unfortunate thing about that was couldn't do it exactly the same way that I normally do a box. Now, in the process of developing this jig, what I've done is I've put together a list. Now, over the last few weeks, I've had to go through all of these things here and put them in the right order that you would normally do a box in. I've found that the processes for this tapered tray are totally different to, or similar in lots of ways, but generally different to the processing that you would do for a normal box. Okay, so this is just a tapered tray. You could do the same with a box, I assume. The thing that I haven't done is I haven't put on here developing a handle. Now, on this little demo one that I've got here, I've actually put a handle in there. So I've built this one again at 5 degrees, 10 degrees I should say, and I've got a little handle. Now, it's only a demo thing, you know, it's quite small, but it was basically designed to sort of work through the pros and cons of actually putting handles in things. To me, they seem to be a little bit lower. I would prefer to have them a little bit higher. So that's something I'll be developing and showing later in a couple of our shows later on. So that little tray there is just another version of what we've been doing and part of my process of developing the boxes or developing the parts for the jig. Now, let me get rid of all of this stuff.
We will come back to that list throughout the series so that everybody can do screenshots of it.
Yeah, we'll get it all sorted for you so that you can actually have a go. Okay, I've probably put that too far away now and I'm going to have to come back and go and find it. Alright, the first thing we had to do was, I'll show you what we have. This is how our little parts come at this stage. I haven't worked out how to package them yet, but this is what's in the package. Before I open that, I want to show you something here. In the past, to cut an angle or an angled piece of material, I've got one here. The idea was to cut an angle on a piece of timber like that. You then rested that flat on the piece on the jig. You would slide the stop up until it touched this point of the jig of the stop, and then you'd clamp the thing together, or you would bring this one here up until it touched there. So the only 2 points of contact on the stops were the top and the bottom, making sure that that was flat on there. Now, to me that doesn't look very, very safe. So what we did is this. I'll get rid of that. These are the parts that we have developed. We have a square. We have a centre stop. We have an end stop. And we have another end stop on the other end. So they're the parts that will come if you purchased a kit. That's what you'd get. You get 2 stops. You would get a centre stop, the knob. You would have the slide on the bottom, pair of clamp holders, and one of our little squares. Now the squares come in 2 different angles. You have 10 degree, 5 degree, that's the end of them. And this one here is 45, 15. Okay, so the 45 would be something that you would probably use with our a mini jig. And you saw the centre support we had on the mini jig. That's a 45-degree angle, so you can actually purchase bits and pieces to fit other jigs as well. Okay, so they're the bits that you'll get in the box. Now, let me show you how they fit. Get those out of the way. That's a nice new set. It is for sale if somebody wants to purchase that. Here we go. This is how they fit. The first thing you need to do is take off your red and blue stop, or your red and the stops that you have on your jig. And this is not very clean. I probably should have got a cleaner one. I'll give it a bit of a tub right now. A bit of dust in there. It's an old jig. And it's had a wonderful life.
Oh, they last forever.
And they last forever. But I'm sure that if I walked into somebody else's workshop, they'd have the same problem. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to take off the end cap. Just nip that end cap off there.
I just have to answer. Skip asked, do we still use the same rebate cutter? And the answer's yes, isn't it?
Yes. You're jumping ahead, Skip. Let me get there.
No, it's a question. It's just a question.
So, in your kit, you'll have one of these little slides. You put the slide in, put your other slide back in, and put your cap back on. This is the same technique you would do if you were adjusting the tightness of your joint. Adjusting the tightness of the joint is exactly the same technique. No different. And you can use this, I've got it on an A10, you can use these on all of our jigs. We'll go on the B10, we'll go on H20 to H10, any of our jigs. A standard jig, probably wouldn't bother putting it on the mini jig. You can see that the tapered angles, and they will just fit on there like that, and then our support goes in the middle.
That was very synchronised because Jim's just asked that very question.
So just taking the bits off and then just replacing it with the new parts. You can see you've got angles on them. The angles are the reverse on the centre support, and this is how it works. I'm going to cover test joint today. This is something I've not done for a long time on a show, basically because I generally set up before the show. But there are different things that have to happen here. Number one, what we're going to do is we're going to set this piece of timber up here like this. We'll slide this along until we've got it in the right place, and then we'll support it with the other one there. And as you can see, it supports it nicely, and we'll put a clamp on it. But what we have to do is cut an angle on the end of our pieces of timber. Now these are just rough pieces of timber that I've got. They're 9mm thick. And to develop something that actually gave you a correct angle, what we could do is we could get our, well, we've got 10mm, 5 and 10. This is how this works. Just a nice little square. You can sit that on there. Myself a pencil. Put that there, so cut that off there. Do the same on here. Now remember, this is a test joint, or these are test joints, so we want to make sure that we've got the angles correct. And we'll go over to our drop saw and cut these. Now one of the problems with the drop saw is How do we get that to sit at the right angle? Particularly if you're using a platform base like I do with my drop saw. What I've done with that, and again, here we go with another little gadget, is I've built just a little support and cut this so that I've got a 10-degree angle on it, right? So all that does is goes up against my backboard, and I was dancing around the edge. Clamp that in place, and then I can sit that there, and if I turn the laser light on, you can see my laser light is right along my 10mm mark. Okay, so just making sure that that stop at the back is accurate is quite important. Okay, so what I can do is I can cut them one at a time, if you like. I like to cut them both at the same time. And so the technique that I use for that is just a little bit of painter's tape. And when I put these together, make sure the edge of the tape is on the side of the piece of wood. And then I'll wrap it around. That gives me a flat surface on here. Go all the way around. Making sure everything's lined up. That's flat surface. This is a flat surface. And do the same on the other end. Some of these techniques that I'm showing you now are generally some of the things that I've made mistakes at. So trial and error has actually worked quite well. So by doing that, I don't have an angle or anything sitting. It's sitting flat on both pieces of tape. And just a matter of okay. Now again, remember this is just a test joint. So if I make a mistake, that's fine. That's why we do the test joint. I just want to test my angle, and it's spot on, just perfect, nice 10 degrees. Don't need that anymore. Okay, now here's another thing that we do that's in reverse of doing a box. Get that out of the way. When I put my face side mark on for a box, I usually put the face side mark so that my back edge or the bottom edge of the box is pointing at the stop. In this case it's reverse, basically because we have it tapered on an angle like that. So when I put my mark on here, my outside of the box, and I put my face side mark pointing at the top of the box. Right. Reason being is because the top is now pointing at the stop. So we slide that to where we have a nice setup, and this point is quite quite important as well. Let me put that in place. If I'm cutting my dovetails, and you always cut your dovetails first, what's going to happen is the dovetail is going to look like this on here, right? When you cut this one, what happens here is the distance between here and the edge is quite significant. On here it's very, very small amount. Right? So that could become a problem. That means that that's very weak in that point there. So what I would do is I would bring this along, depending on the size of our box, and when I'm cutting and measuring, I measure so that I've got a bit more distance here in there, so I can move that along there and get that set up exactly right. What I try to do is I try to make sure that this outside edge here is touching the outside of that, and it makes it really, really easy to set up the other end. So let me put a mark here. Well, actually it's not going to work on this end, so I've got to do this. Let me see how much it is. It's about there.
It's just overlapping ever so slightly.
Yep.
Over the edge.
So there's a point that's that has to be looked at. You don't want just about there. I think it is. We're working both ends of the piece of timber, so there's one there. And this one's going to go there. Okay, so let's cut a joint. I'm only going to do one joint. So I've got these two set, so don't move those. This one here is movable, right? So if I sit that in place, bring up my support, lock that in place. My piece of timber is now stable. Lock it in. And we're ready to go. Now, dovetails. And remember, this is a test joint. So if it doesn't fit, that's okay. We're going to adjust the jig to fit it. Okay, adjust our height is a normal procedure. Use your opposing piece of material and adjust the height. And set as per usual. Now, I just want to go back to my little list of things. Each one of these processes here, before I start cutting that, each one of these processes requires, or each one of these steps I should say, requires a process. So the first thing I did was cut myself some material. Now if I show you this is the material that I've already cut and dressed, right? I've dressed it and I've sanded it to a 600 grit. Now I do it to 600 grit. You don't have to do that. You can do it to any grit that you like, depending on what you're using the product for. I like to do 600 because then I don't have to do all the sanding on the inside of the box once I've got it cut. Cut the required angles on the ends. The process that we went through over there, you can see we went through a bit of a process over at the drop saw where we set up a little jig. So that was another process, and you have to go through that process to get everything right. The next one is to cut dovetails and pins as required on the angles, and so this is what this process is that we're doing now. So we're actually cutting and setting the dovetails. So each of those things on the list are a process to get something else done. Now, I've just got to go and get myself a pair of earmuffs. Back in the set. Alright, let's cut some dovetails. So ears on, everybody. So when I spoke to you earlier, and I said earlier about the amount of distance between the point of that dovetail and the outside edge of here now is a bit more significant because I moved it along, and it's pretty much similar to that one there. So even if you don't have an even layout across here, you can still acquire an even layout by just a little bit of jiggery pokery with your adjustment. Now to do the other end, this is where we came off here. We turn it over, we'll push it up here, and our support, we slide it along to this end. And there we are, supported again. And it's just a matter of cutting our other dovetails. So ears on. And so we'll end up with tapered dovetails. Now, the other end, we turn the jig around, we get our second piece of timber, and it's just a matter of fitting that into there. We've already got it set up, we don't need to fiddle with it. Pop that in. Put the clamp on, checking to see that we'd hard down on our stops. Change the route a bit. Funny question, funny answer.
Oh yeah, Brian Luckins, yeah, he wants to know if jiggery pokery is a technical term. Well, yeah, it is.
Adjust our height. Remember, use your opposing piece of material to adjust your height. Now, same technique for cutting pins as we do with our box. That's an awful piece of timber to cut. Piece of oak. European oak. I'm not going to bother cutting a test joint on the other end of there. I'm just going to fit this together. That's outside. I didn't put a marker on this one, but you can tell which is the inside and the outside. Okay, so we have a perfect fit. And and you have an angle both ways. So there's an angle that way, you can see that angle there, and if I turn it around there you can see that angle as well.
Now let's have a look at the inside.
The inside is a nice neat fit.
Nice and clean.
The compound angle, because it's a compound angle, you're going to have,
That's better.
you're going to have what appears to be a gap there. It's because it's tilted over one way. And don't ask me the formula for doing those angles, but there is a formula for doing those angles. You'll have to talk to a mathematician. But basically that's the test joint done, and yeah, so that's the technique that we use. Now we're going to make a box. Okay, so we know the jig works properly, it's all set up correctly. You set that aside. Now I have some camphor laurel and some coachwood, and we'll make a lovely little tray out of that. Okay, so that's going to be the process. We've got half an hour to get some of the processes done. So the steps that I've done so far, I've got my pieces of timber cut, I've dressed them and I've sanded them to 600. What I need to do now is cut my angles. Okay, so that's my step that I'm going to do now. So I'm going to do that on all 4 pieces, and I'm going to use the same technique I used before by taping my pieces together. Now I don't normally do that, but I want to do it so that it shows you that there is, if you have some sort of setup where you're using a different technique, this is one way around making sure that everything fits properly.
Bit of an insurance policy.
A little bit, yeah. I'm still going to get the same result, even if I did it as a single in each piece individually. I just want to make sure that I've got all my parts exactly the same size. Now I've cut these to length for the material that I have at hand, in as much as I don't have a really wide piece of material that I can use as a base. So what I've had to do is cut my material to fit the material that I do have, the base material that I do have. The base material that I have is just a piece of cedar, 4mm cedar, and I want to be able to just use a piece of that in the bottom of the box. So I've cut these to fit that piece of material. Okay, there's one. I'm only using a tray. I'm only making a tray, so I only want 2 dovetails, not 3 or 4. You could make it any size you like. As you can see, you can set it up on the jig, and once you start adjusting the centre support, you'll find that you can make things a lot wider than I'm making here. Don't forget the thumbs up, folks, if you think this is a good idea. It answers a lot of the questions people ask me. How can I do that and make it easily? There's my 2 pieces of timber. Perfecto. This. Now, I already got them. I'm not going to draw a line on them, basically because I'm going to use the corner of each piece. I have the laser on the saw. Now, even if I move it a little bit further and cut them a little bit shorter, it doesn't really matter. It just makes it a narrower box. So just making sure that I get all bits cut. I have a bad tooth on this saw blade. I have to get my saw blade fixed. The other problem there is you can see how small the little offcuts are. They tend to sort of slide around and end up catching on the saw blade when it's spinning. And that's what that banging is. It doesn't hurt anything really, but it does
sound dramatic.
Give you, it sounds dramatic. It gives you a bit of a fright when it does happen. Okay. Let's go through the processes. So now we've cut the angles. So that was step 3. So step 4, cutting dovetails and pins. Again, this is the process. At this rate, we'll get the box frame made. Now the measurement that I have here, let me show you what I've got. Using my LARK tool, I can tell you that this is 52 millimeters wide. Okay, perfect. 52 mil. Now, if you're using a wider piece of timber, say for argument's sake you're making something that's quite large, something like this, something this size here, our little square doesn't reach across. It doesn't reach all the way across, so you've only got a mark to there and you want the line all the way across. What you can do is set yourself a sliding bevel at the angle that you're working at. So it's just a matter of setting the sliding bevel on there, and then you can set that on there, and then you can mark all the way across. Right? So you probably need a sliding bevel of some description in your workshop if you want to do wider pieces. Then the bigger the piece of timber, or the wider the piece of timber, the bigger the sliding bevel. Okay, now I'm going to use a pencil for this. I don't generally do this. I generally use chalk for doing my face side marks, but I'm going to use a pencil there so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. These are going to be the two ends, right? So what I want to do is I want to cut the dovetails in the long pieces, right? So they're going to look like this. You can see this. It's going to be a bit like that. Okay, so it's quite a big tray. It'll be significant. You could somewhere you could say, for argument's sake, have it on a hall table, and you could throw your keys and your wallet into it on your way in and out of your house. Not that I would put my wallet there. So I'm going to find. This is going to be the outside. So from the top edge put your face side mark on it like that. So again, top edge, top edge is the wider section. This one's a fairly pretty piece of timber. Whoop, wrong. Let's do it the right way. Okay. So dovetail first. Now, at 52 millimeters, what I can do here, you can see what I've done. I've got this lined up right on the edge of one of the fingers, and you can see how much is exposed over the top here, which will give me a fair bit of material here to give me plenty of support for the top edge. Okay, so that's a really easy way of making sure everything's adjusted right. So I can do the same here. Let's move along to this one. No, I'll go to this one.
You need a darker pencil.
I need a darker pencil.
You need a darker pencil.
Who can't see it?
No, everybody's struggling with it, but Jim says you've got to have a darker pencil.
A darker pencil.
Yeah. And also, I have to congratulate Dr. George on his pun about the sawtooth.
What was that? Tell me. I can't see it.
Dr. George said, you know, you made the comment about the bad tooth on the saw blade.
Oh, yeah.
He said, I'm retired now, so I can't help with the sawtooth.
Thanks,
Pun
George.
on the word saw.
Saw, right.
Yeah.
Okay. I get it.
It's very clever.
Very clever. Let me change the route a bit. Keep them coming, George. Keeps the world interesting.
Can you imagine what a dentist convention would be like?
A what?
A dentist convention. That'd be hilarious.
Better be careful, Pam. Somebody on the show might be a dentist.
Well, Dr. George is, obviously.
No, he's a doctor. Okay. Here we go. We're playing this by ear, folks, so
He is a retired dentist, I told you.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okie doke. Ears on. Now, instead of cutting the second end of this one, I would turn it up here and I'd just set and slide that along. What I'm going to do is I'll get my second piece. While that's already set up, I might as well cut that too. Ears on. Slide that along. That in, lock that in. Put my clamp on here. You see now we have the two parts. Adjust my height. Okay, now what might happen here, we may end up with a little piece of material on the top of there, which I might need to be able to, might have to take off. The other thing is, because of the angle of here, we may end up with a little piece on this as well, but we'll see how we go. So that it's just a matter of, as I said before, that a little bit of jiggery pokery with adjusting measurements and trying to get your layout right. It might take a little bit of practice, but once you get it, it'll be fine. This is a lot of practice for me as well. So here we go. So as you can see, there's a little bit of material on the end there. Could use a chisel to take that off, which I will do anyway. I don't want to take too much off. It's just a matter of adjusting my measurements to make sure that that doesn't happen. And the second one. Okay, I'm just going to tidy up those dovetails a little bit. Now if I had my wits about me when I cut that material, I probably wouldn't be doing this little bit of extra cutting. A little bit off there. I'm not too concerned about how this cuts off, because the top edge is going to have an angle on it anyway. Tidy up that one, tidy this one up. This one, the bottom piece chipped off it, so I'm going to have to do a little repair on it. When I do the feet, it took the corner off the thing. It's not a common problem, it's just something that happens when the material's a little bit splintery. Okay, let's see what we have when we fit it together. A little bit of voila. Okay, you can see here there's angles. This angle is taped off this way, and this one is taped off that way. We need to flatten the top of that. We also need to do it on the bottom, because you're going to get the same on the reverse of it on the bottom edges. Now, I'm not sure how Roger Gifkin did these. I didn't see him do them. They're flat on the top and the bottom. But this is the technique that I'm going to be using. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put feet on these pieces of material, and then I will flatten the bottom. Before I do that, I'm going to cut a rebate around the inside of here for my floor while it's assembled. So what I need to do is remove my jig. Now, as you can see, that's worked a treat. I'm really impressed. I'm really chuffed about how it's come together. Like I said, we've got 10 degree, we've got 5 degrees, and you can see how sharp the angles are on the 15 degree. So it's a full set. There's all 15 degrees, all 10 degrees, or 5 degrees. So whichever one that you want to use, whichever one where you want to go with it, you can buy the whole kit. And like I said, the kit comes in, at the moment it's coming in a little bag like that. And probably not a really good way of carrying it. We need to wrap them individually, otherwise we'll end up with breaking things in the post. So we'll have to rearrange the packaging of it. Now as for price, well, we haven't worked that out yet. We're still fiddling around with how that's going to look and how that's going to be, but it'll basically be a complete setup for your jig. So now the rebate cutter. The process that I use for the rebate cutter is exactly the same as I would if I was doing a normal box. So I have my rebate cutter, TGRC, and the big bearing, and I will do exactly the same thing as I would do if I was cutting a box. You've seen me do that many times. It's a lot easier to see while it's in this sort of tray there. So that was step number 4. Number 5, we've dry assembled the sides and we're going to tape it closed in a second. So exactly the same process side on. Now, here's the difference though. When you've got that tilted over at a 10 degree angle, the distance from this inside edge to where the top of your cut is going to be won't be 10 millimeters, right? It will be a little less here because of the higher edge of that angle, edge of that piece of timber, because it's tipped over. So what I'm going to do is, instead of setting that at 10 millimeters, which is what I normally do, I'm going to set it at 12 millimeters. So it gives me a bit more height. So where's my LARK tool?
It's underneath something there.
Underneath something again. First of all, I will take off the big bearing, the little bearing, and put the big one on. Set my ruler at 12 mil.
Jake, did you have a question about the drum sander? I might have missed something.
Okay, so that's set at 12 mil. And now, as I said before, we're going to tape the box. And this is my safety tape that I always do when I do this process, is I tape the box together. I do not want to come apart while I'm cutting. Now, if your joints are a tiny little bit loose, this will help. It's harder to get the tape to actually hang in the corners.
It's messy.
And everything's got an angle on it.
Cole, you use the drum sander to flatten the top and the bottom?
Just the top.
Just the top.
Okay, so that's going to sit like that, and here we go. Ears on, everybody. small cut. Just take the big bearing off. Put the little bearing on. And once I've cut this, we're going to stop because it is 11 o'clock. And it gives me something to do next week.
Oh, don't worry about that. You've got heaps to do next week.
Okay. Don't know if you can actually see that. So there's my trench. Now when we cut the base, we're not measuring from two flat panels. We're measuring from two panels that are tipped over like that, and when your rebate cutter or your rebate's this far below the surface, the distance that we would have from here is going to change because it's a little further out. So you need to make sure that when you cut,
I see what you mean.
when you measure from base to inside here, you need to sort of make it at it's a 5mm depth of cut. But if you took a straight line from this edge straight down, it looks like an 8mm cut or a 7mm cut. So because that's tilted over at an angle, so you have to have allow for that little angle. So cutting a base is not just cutting a normal base. You've got to add some material in there. Now it may mean that you'll cut one a little bit too big and then you just trim it down so that it fits perfectly. So you might need to pull it apart and put it back together a few times, but that's one of the vagaries of this thing. Is it because things have started to become angular, things aren't square like we were doing normally with our boxes. So you need to take a little bit of have a little bit of thought about that as well. So we'll stop there. I'm not going to cut the base at the moment. I'll cut it up and show you how it fits next week, and we'll do the feet, and then we'll flatten it and then get it glued together. Well, actually what I'll do is I'll make another one and get it glued together so that we've got something to work on as well. So we'll go from there. But basically that's the framework. So I hope you enjoyed that, because when I do something new like this, I get a bit excited, and sometimes the message is all skewed a little bit because of my excitement. But anyway, we've got a 10mm tray frame, so it's quite a simple little process now that we have a jig that will accommodate what we're trying to achieve. Now you may not like the tapered dovetails,
but you might enjoy the process.
You might enjoy the process. So something new. So if you wish to purchase one of these, I've got a couple of sets at the moment. I haven't got a full lots and lots, but give us a call and we can discuss your needs, whether you want 5, 10, 15, or you want all 3 sets, or it's up to you. Okay. So
and yeah, just a reminder to Skip that we will be in touch. Yep. Just trying to the time differences, but we'll get there. Yeah. We'll get there.
Yeah. So we'll take it from there. So have a good week, everybody. Thanks for watching, and I really do sincerely hope that you got something out of today. Have a good week, and we will see you all next week. Don't forget the thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do. It helps our Algorithms?
Algorithms.
Algorithms, I got the word right. So have a good week, everybody.